Welcome back to The Explainer. Now, we've got a lot to cover today, and honestly, the topic is pretty intense. We're zeroing in on a date that is literally already going down in cybersecurity history, July 1st, 2026. And look, it's not historic because some massive global attack already happened. No, it's historic because of an absolutely wild emergency security advisory that suddenly laid bare just how vulnerable our critical enterprise infrastructure really is. 7, in almost any other context, it's just a number. But today, it is a total shock to the system. Adobe just issued an emergency bulletin announcing they had to patch 7 simultaneous vulnerabilities. And get this, they all scored a perfect maximum severity on the global scoring scale. Look, having just one of these is a rare hair-on-fire kind of event. Dropping 7 at the exact same time, that is entirely unprecedented. So what does a CVSS 10.0 actually mean? Well, let's break it down into plain English. The Common Vulnerability Scoring System literally caps out at 10. That's the absolute max. So here is the crucial takeaway. This means an attacker can gain complete control of your server right over the open internet. They don't need a username, they don't need a password, you don't even have to click a malicious link or do, well, anything at all. The attack complexity is incredibly low and the impact, total compromise. Okay, so for today's incident response briefing, here's our game plan. We're going to methodically break down the perfect 10 anomaly, inside the vulnerable platforms, the enterprise blast radius, the historical context, and finally, your 72-hour action plan. All right, diving right into Section 1, the perfect 10 anomaly. This is a priority 1 emergency. Let me be clear, this is definitely not your standard Patch Tuesday update. Adobe flagged these flaws as a priority 1 emergency. They basically see the likelihood of active exploitation as incredibly high, and they are strictly demanding organizations get these patched within a 72-hour window. Renowned security researcher Kevin Beaumont hit the nail on the head, calling this a perfect storm, 7 perfect score flaws in legacy products used by thousands of major organizations. I mean, the stakes here couldn't be higher. Because these flaws are totally unauthenticated, threat actors don't need initial access to get inside. Writing an exploit is not a massive hurdle here, meaning widespread ransomware attacks could be just weeks away. We are on a ticking clock. Let's move on to Section 2, inside the vulnerable platforms, specifically Cold Fusion and Campaign Classic. Now, you might be wondering if this affects every piece of Adobe software. It doesn't. These vulnerabilities are highly concentrated on 2 specific enterprise platforms. Let's contrast these targets. First up, we've got Cold Fusion. This platform was created way back in 1995. So yeah, it carries some severe legacy technical debt, but it is still heavily used by banks, government agencies, and Fortune 500 companies. It has 6 of those perfect 10 flaws. Then we have Campaign Classic. It only has 1 perfect 10 flaw, but it's an enterprise marketing automation platform. That means it holds massive, highly sensitive databases. Think customer names, purchase histories, contact info. A target like that is totally ripe for GDPR-level privacy breaches. So looking closer at Cold Fusion, those 6 perfect 10 flaws actually fall into 3 distinct attack categories: unrestricted file uploads, path traversal, and improper input validation. And honestly, it gets worse. Alongside those perfect 10s, Adobe also had to patch vulnerabilities with scores of 9.3, like CVE 2026-43133. Attackers can actually chain those together with the other flaws to take absolute control of the system. It's like a giant, very dangerous puzzle. Shifting focus to that single Campaign Classic vulnerability, CVE 2026-48286, we are dealing with an incorrect authorization flaw. In plain terms, the authentication system itself was just improperly implemented, so attackers can bypass authentication completely. From there, they could steal entire customer databases, leverage your own brand's credibility to launch massive phishing supply chain attacks, and potentially trigger multi-million-dollar GDPR and CCPA fines. Not a good day for the legal team for sure. Next up, Section 3, the Enterprise Blast Radius. Okay, so we know what the flaws are, but to truly grasp the threat level, we really need to look at exactly how an attacker exploits these to maximize the blast radius across a whole network. Let's walk through the mechanics. In this unrestricted file upload attack chain, step 1, the attacker simply runs a Shodan scan to find a Cold Fusion server exposed to the internet. Easy enough. Step 2, they craft a malicious file upload request. Step 3, upload a web shell to a predictable location. Step 4, execute arbitrary commands. And finally, step 5, they deploy ransomware or just exfiltrate your data. It is an effortlessly smooth pipeline from discovery straight to total devastation. Now, here's a really crucial distinction depending on where your systems actually live. If you're using Adobe Campaign Classic purely as a cloud service, hosted by Adobe, take a deep breath, you are safe. Adobe automatically patched all of their cloud instances for you, but, and this is a big but, if you are running on-premise deployments or hybrid environments, you absolutely must manually update your instances right now. You are literally on the front lines here. All right. Section 4, the historical context. Let's compare some past crises. To truly wrap our heads around the severity of July 2026, we've got to step back and compare this Adobe crisis to the worst cybersecurity events we've seen recently. Just to ground ourselves in reality here. Remember Log4Shell back in December 2021? That caused an absolute global panic, and it was driven by just one 10.0 vulnerability. How about the SolarWinds supply chain attack in 2020? Again, just one 10.0 vulnerability. This Adobe crisis? It has a staggering 7. The sheer volume and severity of these simultaneous flaws is something the enterprise world has literally never faced before. Which brings us to Section 5, your 72-hour action plan for immediate mitigation. I'm actually going to slow down the pace a bit here because if you're on an IT or security team, listen up. This is your immediate, methodical survival strategy. This is exactly what you need to do to secure your infrastructure. Here's your step-by-step patching process. First off, absolutely never patch directly in production. You must test in a staging or development environment first, period. Next, plan your maintenance window. Prepare a strict rollback plan just in case things go sideways, coordinate with your application and database teams, and then finally, execute that production patch. For Cold Fusion, you're looking for 2025 Update 10 or 2023 Update 21. For Campaign Classic, you need version 7.4.3 build 9397. Seriously, get these done. But what if you physically cannot patch your systems within that 72-hour window because of some complex application dependencies? Well, you need to implement temporary web application firewall, or WAF, mitigations immediately. You've got to restrict the types of files that can be uploaded, set rules to block path traversal patterns, thoroughly sanitize all user inputs at the application layer, implement rate limiting, and apply geo-blocking wherever needed. Look, WAF is just a temporary shield, right? But it might just buy you the precious time you need. I want to share this incredibly powerful analogy from cryptographer and security expert Bruce Schneier. He said dealing with a CVSS 10.0 vulnerability is equivalent to leaving your company's vault door wide open. And this is absolutely vital for your leadership to understand. Failing to act on these Adobe flaws, that's not just an IT failure. It is a massive operational, financial, and legal risk that impacts the entire business. Which brings us to our final thought for today. Is your organization's technical debt, relying on 30-year-old legacy platforms just because they seem too expensive to migrate, actually becoming your biggest strategic risk? Let this crisis be the wake-up call. We really can't assume we aren't a target anymore. It's time to rethink our infrastructure, adopt a strict zero-trust mindset, and take action before the next unprecedented crisis hits. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay safe out there, and seriously, get patching.